Just allow me 30 seconds. Just checking from the back.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, so we are live on YouTube.
Just allow me 30 seconds. Just checking from the
Okay.
Right. Okay, so let's start. Hi, Benjamin. Welcome to the session at GyanDhan. Thanks a lot for giving out your time. We are looking forward for the session today. So let me start with a bit of introduction about GyanDhan, about myself, and then I will move to you. So everyone who is watching us on the YouTube, welcome to the session today. Thanks a lot for joining, especially on the Friday evening. I know a lot to be done, or it's the day when everybody thinks that okay, I will rest a bit. I hope you won't be disappointed with the session today. So let me start with a brief introduction of GyanDhan. We are an education financing platform. We help students getting the education loans to study abroad, to study in India. We can give loans for students who want to study in schools, coachings, colleges to study abroad in countries like US, Canada, Australia, Ireland. We started back in 2016, and since then we've already done more than 4,500 loans in total, 1,000 crores in education loans, and we've received great response from the student community. In our gist of helping the students, we keep organizing events every weekend where we try to invite people, relevant experts from the industry who can help the student community, students with whatever questions they have. And given the time, right now, many students who have taken the loan through us or who have taken loans elsewhere or have not taken a loan, whatever be the case, are now looking to moving abroad in the month of August or September, especially US, when many classes starts. And many has the visa interview scheduled because the visa embassies are open now, and you can go and can get your visa approved. I keep getting messages that hey, my visa is approved and everything. So I think it's the high time everyone is thinking about visa, and that's why we have Benjamin today. Benjamin is the former US diplomat and currently director of an organization called Argo Visa. It's based out of US. Primarily helping students with the visa processes, and not just the student visa. Argo deals in all kind of visas, but we have been in partnership with Argo for last 2 years now, and we are very amazed by the knowledge that the organization possesses and the kind of people that are part of the organization. And we consider ourselves lucky to have that kind of association, and which we are able to help pass on the knowledge to the student community. So thanks a lot, Benjamin, to giving out your time for the session today. We have many students who are hearing us right now, and would love to hear from you around usually what is the visa processes, and especially the tips on what should be one do in the visa interviews and what one shouldn't do. So over to you.
Great, thank you, Aman, and I'm happy to be here today with GyanDhan. Happy to talk to students all the time. You know, I worked in the State Department before as a visa officer, and now on the outside, I enjoy my job a lot more because now I get to use all of my knowledge to help students get their visas and get through that process. All right, now I'm going to pull up a presentation that I prepared for you. And this presentation, it's going to be about 20 to 30 minutes. And then we're going to have plenty of time for questions because I know that's why a lot of you are here, and what a lot of people will get the most out of are the questions, because everyone's situation is so different, and everyone wants to know what's going to happen in their situation when they apply for a visa. So our company is called Argo, and these are the top 10 things that you should know about the F and J visa interview process. Like I said, my name is Ben Arterburn. I was a U.S. diplomat for 6 years. I served in China, as a consular officer doing visas, immigrant visas and non-immigrant visas, in addition to American Citizen Services. I went to Bogota, Colombia after that, and there I also did non-immigrant visas, innumerable student visas, and I was also in the anti-fraud unit, where we were in charge of investigations and going through all the processes that we have whenever someone is suspected of not qualifying for the visa. After that, my final position with the State Department, I was in Shanghai, China, and I was the spokesperson and press secretary for the U.S. consulate there. Here's just another picture of me on the job, being very diplomatic, as you can see. So let's talk about this interview process, just from a macro point of view. Yes, of course, you're going in and you're wanting to apply for the visa, but what's actually going on in this interaction? Well, applicants are nervous. Applicants are very nervous, and that's understandable. There is a lot of misinformation out there about the visa process. There are a lot of people that claim to be experts, that claim to have this special information, or to claim to have a little secret. But there's no one that can tell you who to trust and not to trust. All the while, the U.S. consulate or embassy is completely silent on the matter. They might tell you, oh, you can just fill out the application yourself. Well, I'll let you in on something. None of them have actually tried to fill out the application themselves. They have no idea how unuser-friendly it is, how many times the system will kick you off and erase all the information that you've put in. So they really, themselves don't even know how hard it is for even a tech-savvy person to complete this application and how many hours it might take. So people go in very nervous. It's understandable, but that nervousness can sometimes be interpreted by the visa officers as nervousness because they think that someone's lying, right? When really, we know that people are nervous because they know that their friends or family members or people that they've heard of who should have gotten a visa, who were eminently qualified, were still refused. Okay, so it's a very understandably nerve-wracking experience. There are also language and cultural misunderstandings. I did visas in China. I had lived in China for 5 or 6 years before that, speaking Chinese. I got a master's degree in Chinese studies. So obviously my understanding of the situation in China, my ability to speak Chinese, was greater than that of some of my colleagues who had just been taught Chinese for about 8 months before being sent for the first time to China, and then within a few weeks being told, okay, start making these decisions that's going to affect these people's lives in a really important way. So sometimes you're going to run into an officer that's got greater knowledge, and sometimes you might run into an officer that has lesser knowledge, and that can affect the outcome of the interview. You cannot rely on documents. I know that there's a lot of preparation of documents for visa applicants, and that's because it's something that's very tangible, right? You feel nervous about the interview, but you've now got a document, and you feel like that's going to help you get through the interview process. However, documents are only secondary in the interview. The primary factor in your interview is going to be your interview, your conversation, what you say to the visa officer. All right, that's going to have much more of an effect on the outcome than any documents that you might have prepared. Consular workers are overworked. There is a lot of demand. Their managers are pushing them to interview as many people as they possibly can, as fast as possible. So they're taking 1 to 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes to interview each person. And then they're going to have to make a decision. They're going to have incomplete information, imperfect information, limited understanding of what the applicant tells them, but they still have to make that decision. So you have to take that into account, that when you go into this interview, you're confronting a time-constrained process, and you need to convince them as quickly as you can to issue you, or if they're confused, if things aren't clear, if they're not comfortable, you're more likely to get a refusal. And these visa interviews are high stakes because that visa officer can make whatever decision they're going to make, that they're inclined to make during that interview process, and then that's it. You can always apply again, but then what happened in that first interview is always going to play a role in what happens subsequent to that. So when you go in for the next interview, they're going to see what happened in the first one, and one refusal makes it harder to get an issuance the next time. It's not impossible, and we'll go over some things that can help you, but it does make it harder. Some trends around the world in 2018. So we're going to say a year that was a normal year, right? Obviously, with COVID, the numbers are completely skewed, and so we'll go back to a year that was a normal year. This year won't be normal either. Hopefully, within a year or two, we will be able to get back to normal numbers and be on trend with this. 363,000 student visas were issued in 2018. Of those, 195,000 were rejected. And another 68,000 had pending issues, which is what we would call a check or administrative processing. So you can see it's not all smooth sailing for everyone when they go in for their student visa interview. On average, around the world, this is global, there are 35% of student visa applicants will be rejected. Now that's the aggregate of the entire world. So you've got countries where there are higher refusal rates, and there's countries where there are lower refusal rates. So it depends on your specific country where you're going to apply. That will determine the real rejection rate. But on average across the world, it's 35%. Now on this slide, you can see that the worldwide U.S. student visa issuances has been trending downwards. One factor in this is that there are fewer applicants. Countries like China, for instance, students are choosing less and less to study abroad as their education system, and their prospects for jobs actually increases with a domestic education. So there's less demand. But on the other hand, there is also a trend towards being stricter in terms of the visa issuances, especially during the previous administration when there were lots of restrictions and just the general atmosphere towards immigration was harsher. The refusal rates went up and the number of students coming to the U.S. went down. So this is just to say that you don't need to take this visa interview lightly. It's high stakes, and there is the possibility that something might go wrong, and so you need to be very well prepared for it, because the first interview without any prior refusals is your best shot, and you want to go in prepared rather than going in, taking the chance, getting refused, and then deciding you need help after the refusal. So let's start in on the 10 things that you didn't know about the F and J interview process. Visa officers know a lot, but not everything. They think they know everything, but they don't. Not all of the information is available to them at the time, and they don't know everything about the country that you're in. Like I said, their language skills are limited. Also, their cultural knowledge is limited. They don't know about the cultural practices as deeply as someone who's born and raised in that country. For instance, familial relations, obligations to parents, perhaps more distant family members having obligations to other family members. An example would be, in America, it would be very, very rare that perhaps an uncle or a cousin would pay for the tuition for someone to go to college. That's just not in the cultural mix in the United States for someone to have that obligation, unless somebody was extremely wealthy. Now, in other countries, I know that is something that is more common, where if there's a member of the family or a cousin's family who has been successful, they'll have the obligation and also the privilege to support other members of the family in terms of getting their education and raising the entire family's prospects and standard of living. Now, that's something that many visa officers might not know about, and so explaining, oh yeah, I've got a sponsor who's an uncle or a cousin, or even a family friend, can cause a problem sometimes. Now, in terms of the information that they have, they've got a lot of information that they see in their system, but they don't see everything, and they don't know everything. They're very specialized in what they do. And for instance, SEVIS. Student visa applicants all know about SEVIS, about getting their I-20 form from their university and having their SEVIS status inactive. However, the visa officers are not very expert in this. They don't know how that works. They've never been taught that. All they know is that the SEVIS needs to be paid and active. They have no idea how it gets to that point. They don't know how you pay for it. They don't know how it gets adjusted. They don't know who adjusts that SEVIS status. So there are some things in the visa interview that you can assume that they know about. For instance, if you've been issued a visa before by a different country or a different post, right? If you applied in Hyderabad the first time and got a visa and now you're applying in Mumbai, they're going to know this. but they're not going to know about that SEVA status, about it being transferred from one school to another. So, we know what's in their systems, what's going on there, and what needs some explanation and what doesn't need explanation. The visa officer has the final authority to make whatever decision they're going to make, right? They have a consular commission. I have a consular commission here that I had issued by President Obama when he was in office that gave me the final authority to make consular decisions. Not even the manager can overrule the visa officer once they've made a decision. Now, you can come in for another interview and then it's a new decision, but that one decision, that is all in the power of that one visa officer to make. Now, that's to say, you can't say, oh, let me talk to your manager. You're not doing this right. That's not possible. They are their own manager in that moment. However, that's also to say that if you've been refused and you go in for another visa interview, that new visa officer can change the decision. That's a new visa interview. It's a new decision, and they are once again fully authorized to make that decision and it be final. So there is a path forward. That's going to affect their thinking. They're going to see, my colleague already refused this student a week, 2 weeks, a month ago. Do I want to overrule and go against his decision, his or her decision? Now, sometimes there are officers who are very timid and are very averse to doing that. There are other officers, though, that are more bold, that are more, we can even say customer focused, who are really going to give you another hearing, another fair shake, and they're going to analyze your case again. So there is a factor of luck in terms of the personality and the disposition of the consular officer that you end up getting routed to the day of your interview. Number 8, the school that you apply for matters. Now, this is something that's a little controversial. The embassy and the consulate, they may hold events and they tell you there's no difference between any college that you apply for. You apply for a 4-year university, or you apply for a community college, or you apply for an English language program. That they're all valid means of study. They're all valid programs that an F-1 visa can qualify for. However, let's be real. Someone who comes in and has been accepted to Harvard or Yale is going to be viewed differently than someone that comes in and is going to a 1-month English language program and who doesn't have any other higher education. These programs may both be equally legit. They accept your fee, they accept your tuition money, and then they provide instruction for a set amount of time. However, the acceptance into one program over another can tell the visa officer a lot about the applicant, right? If someone has been accepted to Harvard, obviously they may have been born very gifted, but also they've been preparing. They've been studious. They've been assiduous in their academic career, right? And what is the best predictor of future performance? Your past behavior, right? Your past performance. And so they're going to see this and they're going to say, okay, this person has obviously been very serious, very earnest as a student. And so when I issue their visa, I can trust that what they're going to do is go to America and continue that behavior, being a very good student. Now, going to another program that, let's say, doesn't have strict admissions standards. So, Harvard might have a standard for the SAT or ACT, your grades in school, extracurriculars, and things like that you need to rise to the level of. However, another school might have lower standards. They might not have a TOEFL requirement. They might not have the GPA requirement. They might not even require the SAT or ACT, which means that a broader subset of people can apply to these programs and be accepted. And just so you know, there are people who do misuse these programs. They will apply to schools that have lower admissions standards in order to get the I-20 and apply for an F visa, when then what they do when they arrive in America is they do not go to their school. They do not enroll in their academic program. They immediately just begin working, which was their original plan. And those people do cause it to be harder for the legit students to get their visas passed when they apply to those same schools. Number 7, refusals are difficult to overcome but not impossible. Like I said, that visa officer can make whatever decision that they choose to at the time of that visa interview within the law. So the refusals at the time, they mean that you're not going to get the visa that time. However, in the future, you can apply for a visa again, and it can be issued. What matters is convincing that officer first that they should even give you a fair hearing, right? Many times they're going to ask that question that I know that people have heard of. If anybody in the audience has been refused before and went in for a second visa interview, they may have asked you, what's changed since your last interview? It's an interesting question, and all over the world, visa officers ask this question. Well, I would actually say it's an uninteresting question, but it's a very common question. Now, why do they ask this? It's not in the law. It's not in their foreign affairs manual. It is just something that visa managers all over the world have decided is a good practice because their concern is efficiency. They don't want everyone that's been refused to come in the next day and apply, because then that will just double the number of visa applicants that they have the next day, doubles the amount of work they have to do, and there's a chance that they're going to get behind in their work. So what they're concerned about is efficiency and moving through the visa applicants quickly. They tell their visa officers, hey, if someone has been refused recently here by one of us, if nothing's changed since they were refused that time, you should probably just refuse them again. So they kind of give them free license to not really give a full review to someone. So the first thing is, when they ask that question, a visa applicant needs to know how to answer that question in a way that convinces them, oh, I can't just refuse them outright. Something is different. Something wasn't taken into account in that last interview. And I need to give this visa applicant another fair hearing because they merit it, right? So that's the way that we approach that. At Argo, we're all former visa officers, and so we know exactly what's in the head of these visa officers. Yeah, I've done over 60,000 visa interviews myself. Other of our officers have done nearly 100,000. Everyone's done multiple tens of thousands of interviews. It's something that you've done so many times that it's intuitive and second nature to know exactly what goes on in the mind of a visa officer when they see a prior refusal and what influences their thinking, what makes it lean towards issue and what makes it lean towards refusal. 214B. 214B is something you may have heard of. 214B is the most common refusal code. And if you are refused, you will receive a sheet from the visa officer that says that you've been refused 214B. It might say a lot of other stuff, and you may ask them, what does this mean? Why have I been refused? And they tell you, oh, look at the sheet. The sheet tells you everything. I can assure you the sheet tells you nothing. The sheet will not tell you why you've actually been refused. It just explains what that clause in the law means. And that clause in the law says that all intending immigrants, excuse me, let me start over. It says that all visa applicants are presumed to be intending immigrants unless they can prove to the satisfaction of the consular officer that they are not. Put simply, that means guilty until proven innocent. The opposite of the standard that we're actually very used to in the United States in our judicial system, which is innocent until proven guilty. So the burden is on you, the applicant, to convince them to issue you their visa. They can refuse anyone 214B without having any reason to do so, because the default, the starting point, is refusal. And then the applicant has to convince them to get to issuance, right? So that's why it's an uphill process to get to an issuance. Now, there's that intending immigrant part. That doesn't mean that everyone that gets refused, they have ample reason to believe they will be an intending immigrant. They use 214B every time that they just don't feel comfortable. In my experience, most of my colleagues' refusals under 214B were not because they thought, oh, I know exactly that this person is going to go and immigrate permanently to the U.S. They're not going to be a tourist. They're not going to be a student. What actually has happened is that there's things that they don't understand. There's complications, right? There's something odd that's new, something novel about someone's situation that raises the threshold of their confidence, right? And the more layers you add, the higher that threshold gets, the more likely it is that the visa officer is going to refuse you just because they're not comfortable and confident that they understand everything that's happening in your situation. Number 5, administrative processing. Okay, administrative processing is also known as 221G. If you go in for a visa interview and they hand you a sheet that says 221G, they keep your passport and they don't tell you that your visa is issued. What that means is that, simply put, they are not making a decision right then in the moment. They're going to make the decision later. There could be many reasons for this. Some are just required by the law. There's the so-called check that some applicants need to be put through, where they just collect all your documents and then they'll advise you later whether or not you've been approved or denied. Other times it's because you haven't brought sufficient information. You haven't brought the right forms, and they're going to pause your case, put you in 221G status, and wait for you to send them new forms. The best way to avoid this is just being completely prepared. Have all documents prepared and also know everything. Many people don't know their parents' finances intimately. However, at the time of the visa interview, they're going to ask questions. If you're a student who's 18 years old, they're going to ask questions about your parents' finances. And saying the natural thing, which would be, well, I don't know that much about it. I know that my father does this and my mother does this, but in terms of their investments and the value of property or anything like that, they might not know about that. But the visa officer will expect you to know those answers. Not knowing them at best could result in administrative processing. And at worst, they could just think, okay, well, they don't know about this, so I'm going to assume that it's not good information, and then they may refuse you. Number 4, the visa record is for life. Sometimes a visa applicant will show up in, let's say they show up in Calcutta, and they apply for a visa and they're refused in Calcutta. And then the next week they show up in Chennai, and they're going to apply for a visa in Chennai. And what does the visa officer see right then? They see someone who was refused in one place and now thinks, oh, maybe if I go here, they'll give me a different answer. They don't like this, right? I know that there's a lot of information out there on the internet, and some people might say, oh, Hyderabad is a better place to apply than Delhi because they're more strict in New Delhi. Well, what they see is the equivalent of, think about when a child goes to their mother and says, hey, Mom, can I have some candy? And she says, no, you can't have any candy. And then the child runs over to his father and says, hey, Dad, can I have some candy? And Dad says, oh, yeah, sure, right? That's what they think is going on there. Just kind of seeing which one will give them the visa. And they don't like that. Most times when someone has been refused a visa, my advice and the advice of all my colleagues would be that you need to apply in the same location where you were refused. That's not always the case. There are circumstances in which someone has chosen the wrong location the first time, and there is a need to correct that location and go to the place where they're actually going to be able to issue the visa. But in general, that's the case. The thing to remember overall for this is that when you've applied for a visa, that record is in the system forever, right? If you applied 10 years ago and you go in today, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to open up those notes from what happened 10 years ago. And it's going to be like it's present with them right now, right? The time passing is irrelevant as soon as they open it up and they read what happened the time before. So keep that in mind. There's no chance, there's no space here for trying something one way another time and then changing the information another time. It needs to be consistent because it's going to be reviewed sequentially every time you apply for a visa. Number 3, student visa interviews are almost always conducted in English, even for ESL students. Now, this shouldn't be much of an issue for the students that I'm speaking to today in India. However, some students do want to know if they can conduct their interview in their native language. While it's allowed, it will not be viewed well by the officer because studying English is considered one of the things that someone who would be studying in America would be preparing for. So lower level English skills are viewed with suspicion. So I do encourage people who might feel like, oh, well, I'm very nervous, and so I would like to speak in a native language. I would encourage you to prepare more in English to be able to maximize your chances of a visa issuance. Number 2, documents are not important. Now, there's a caveat there. You see our asterisks there. Documents are not the most important, right? So you might have a letter of introduction, a letter of support. You might have a letter confirming your scholarship. You might have the deeds to property that you or your family owns. But what you need to be prepared for is that visa officer is not going to ask you for your documents. In fact, if you try to give them your documents, they are going to reject them. They want to move as quickly as possible. So they want you to answer their questions verbally in a way that convinces them that they can issue you your visa, right? So while you do need to have all those documents, and I do recommend that you prepare all of those documents, right, in a very clear, concise, easy to understand way, organized so that you can find them quickly. However, you need to be prepared to convey all of your relevant information to the visa officer verbally as your primary tool in trying to get your visa issued. There are some documents that you obviously need to bring. We don't need to stress these: your passport, your DS-160 confirmation page, a recent photo, and your I-20. Besides that, they may be requesting other stuff at the interview, which if you don't have it, you would be put in 221G. And so it's best to just prepare as much as you possibly can regarding your academic career, your finances, your plans in the US, your study, etc. Lastly, be an active interviewee. The biggest mistake that I see a lot of visa applicants make is that they arrive to their interview and they're passive. They wait to be asked a question, and then they answer the question as simply as possible, perhaps with even one word. What are you going to do in the US? Study. That is the absolute worst answer that an F-1 visa applicant can give. And the reason is that they already know you're going to study. You've just handed them your passport with a barcode on it, which when they scan it, shows them you're applying for an F-1 student visa. Also, you've handed them your I-20, which shows that you're going to study. So saying study in that case not only wastes an opportunity to give them some relevant information, some good information, some supporting information that's going to show why your program of study, why your circumstances, why your academic career supports your application. It also comes off as a bit daft. They know, of course I know that you're going to study, but then you just say study, right? What they're saying, no matter what they ask you, is they might ask you, how are you going to fund this? What are you going to study? What's your purpose of travel to the US? Why did you choose this university? The answers that they want are all, tell me why I should give you the visa, right? So you have to be an active interviewee. You have to know what do they actually want to know when they're asking me this question, and give them a fuller answer. Not speaking forever, but a fuller answer that really, takes away some of their uneasiness, lowers their concern, right? Dispels some of their suspicions. So you have to be an active interviewee. It's not always easy to know what you should be active in saying in your interview. That's where we can come in and we can help you put a strategy together. But you definitely need to be active. If you just rely on them to ask you questions, maybe they won't even ask you the right question. You might know, hey, I've got a scholarship. But if they never ask you if you have a scholarship and you're passive, they'll never know. So let me tell you now about our company, Argo. Argo is unique. It's a relatively new company. We are a platform online where we connect visa applicants like you through our platform that has a video conferencing to former visa officers. We've got a network of former visa officers. Every one of us has worked for multiple years as visa officers abroad. We are very knowledgeable in all of the regulations that govern the different visa types, what's allowed, what's not allowed. Additionally, we all speak multiple languages from the post where we served. And we, most importantly, we know what goes on in the mind of a visa officer when they are judging a visa applicant and deciding whether or not to issue their visa. We've served all over the world. In fact, as we add to our team, the number of countries and the number of languages that we speak continues to increase. So this map is even a little bit out of date. We've added other countries like Ecuador and Colombia and Nigeria and the UK. Even since we've put this map together, where our officers have served in embassies and consulates adjudicating visas. 25 of us right now speak 14 different languages and have served in 34 countries. So, if the majority of our students that are listening today are in India, we do have officers that speak Hindi and Gujarati. But also, I know that most people are speaking English fluently in their education programs and applying for their programs in the U.S. But the benefit there is still that we have officers that have served in India, understand the situation of students in India, and also have worked in the consulates in India adjudicating visas and know exactly what the thinking is. They understand local institutions, local practices, and can help you get your visa. In total, our visa officers, former visa officers with Argo, the 25 of us, have made decisions on over 1 million visa applications. 1 million visa interviews in person, face to face, which is really, I'm astounded every time I think about that number, the number of decisions that we've made on visas. And this is the first time that any company has ever put together such expertise from former visa officers and made it available to the public. Okay, so yeah, you can see here we've got our website at www.argovisa.com. There's plenty of information there about us, about our team, about our visa officers, and the services that we issue. Now, I hope that I went fast enough with that, because I do want to leave plenty of time for us to do some Q&A. I know that's what most people are interested in here. So let's go ahead and get started with that, Aman.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think the presentation was wonderful, and I myself learned a lot as compared to the presentation that we had last time. So we have many questions. I don't think we will be able to take all of them, because we just have 20 minutes before we end this session. So the first question we have is from Shruti. And the question is, can the funding change after issuance of I-20? So what she's asking is that, let's say in the visa, while getting the I-20, she mentioned that, okay, she will be self-funding. But after that, she has taken a loan, and now she's going for the visa interview with the loan sanctioned. So does that impact her application in any negative way whatsoever?
No, it won't affect it in a negative way. What I would recommend, though, is if you've gotten a scholarship or something like that where it looks better, it supports your application more, I would ask for an amended I-20 so that when you go in for your visa interview, it looks better. It shows that you have more funding rather than going in with the lesser one. But no, that's not a problem. You know, people put together their funding over the course of their application period, so that's not a problem if it changes from the time that you got your I-20 to the time of your interview.
So it's not mandatory to get the amended I-20, right? People can go ahead with the earlier I-20 itself.
Yes, it's not mandatory.
Got it.
The more important thing about getting an amended I-20 is the start date. If your program start date has passed or it's too soon, you know, for instance, if it's tomorrow and there's not enough time for them to give you the visa for you to arrive in the U.S., you have to arrive in the U.S., land at the airport in the U.S. on or before that program start date. Otherwise, they can't issue you the visa. So if that program start date has passed, and I know right now it's very hard to get a visa interview, then you do need to write to your school, get an amended program start date, and then go to your interview.
Great. So we have the next question. Is from Sanchita. My program is for 21 months and I-20 is for 9 months. Do I need to show funds for the entire duration of the program?
If the I-20 is only for 9 months, then that's the only program that they're evaluating you for at the time of your interview. So you would only technically need to show funds for that. But let me go back to what I said before. It's not just about the technicalities of, oh, okay, can you show some amount of funds to cover this 9-month period while you're in the U.S. They're going to want to be convinced by more than just an amount of funds. They want to know about the totality of your circumstances. What's your academic career been like? What's your family's general finances like? Your general finances if you're already an adult and already working. So it's more than just the documents showing those funds. It's about the story that you're going to tell them.
Got it. The next question is that in my DS-160 form, I missed to mention my monthly salary. Please confirm if it would create any problem in the visa interview. Please suggest if I need to create new DS-160 form again.
If you've already scheduled your interview and submitted the DS-160, you can't change that DS-160 for that interview. It's already been submitted. If you just omitted the salary and didn't put anything there, that's not going to be a problem. They may just ask you for your salary. If your salary is very high, I would make sure that you want to mention that at the time of your interview, because that could be something that supports your application, to let them know, oh, I have a very high salary. I'm very stable here. My prospects are really good. To have a good future. However, if you did put the wrong salary, you're going to want to bring that up immediately. If you put the wrong salary and it looks low, or if it's off, if you put a salary that's higher than your real salary, and they check that, then it's going to look bad, and they would accuse you of attempting to commit fraud if they find out that you put a salary that's different from your real salary and they investigate it.
Got it. For the people, we are taking the questions from the YouTube chat. So if you have any question, we have 15 more minutes. You can put it in the chat only, and we will try to cover as many as we can, given the limited time we have. And if you have further questions and very specific or personal questions that you want to discuss, we have a link in the description. I think you will have to refresh it once. It will appear in your description of the video. You can use that link to book the session at Argo. Good thing is that GyanDhan will be giving you the cashback if you book with that link and get the assistance from the Argo team. That's something that we would be happy to do from our end. Next question that I have is, are visa officer aware of the fact that universities insist on liquid funds for I-20, whereas they accept loans for actual payments?
No, the visa officers are not aware of that. The way that you prove the funding to the university when you get your I-20 is completely separate and unknown to the visa officers, right? The university is acting more on technicalities where you just show the availability of funds, and that's what they want you to do, right? They have no incentive to say, oh, we don't like where these funds come from. If they satisfy the requirements, then they're going to accept them. Then the visa officers are more concerned with looking at the entire financial situation holistically and seeing, okay, what are these funds? Where are they from? Who's paying for it? What are the prospects of this person actually going to the U.S., studying as they say they're going to, and then returning to their country? So yeah, that technical aspect doesn't matter too much to the visa officers.
Right.
So they do matter. They do care about if those funds are your own funds or if it is a loan, right? They don't care about the technical aspect of how they're listed on the I-20. They just care about the source, because obviously, if someone's wealthy or their family's wealthy and can pay for the university with cash that's in the bank account, that's probably going to look better than someone who takes loans, right? So, that will affect your application and how you explain it, how you talk about how you're going to pay back the loan, right? Your prospects for work and salary afterwards. But no, the technical part of how it's listed on the I-20 is not important.
Yeah. So I have a follow-up question. Does that impact a lot, the loan part? Because a very high percentage of the Indian students do apply for a visa with the loan only. And we have never heard of it before, that loan versus self-funding loan is preferred. So just wanted to check that how much it impact.
Well, as you know, in America, the majority of American students also attend university with loans. So that's a very common practice, and so it's very understood. It's not something that they're going to think is out of the ordinary, but there needs to be a concise, clear explanation for how you got the loan, how you're going to pay it back, a plan or something like that. The plan shows that you've put in the time that a real student would put in to planning their future, to analyzing their prospects, rather than someone who's just put together an application as a facade in order to get a visa for some other purpose.
Right. So you have the next question, and this person is saying, I had a visa for 5 years which expired. How would this bear on my second application?
Can you say that again? That was a visa that had expired?
I had a visa for 5 years which expired. How would this bear on my second application?
That would be good. That would be good information. If someone has had a visa previously and they used it well, usually that means that they're just going to issue that visa again with no problems. For instance, if someone has had a B1, B2 visa in the past for tourism to the U.S. and now they're going to apply for an F visa, the visa officer most likely will not even care about the finances or the funding. They will think, okay, well, this person already had the chance to stay in the U.S. They were already there. They had their visa, and they chose not to. They chose to return, and so they can trust that's what they're going to do in the future as well.
Yeah, I think that answers a lot of questions where people have asked that they're the tourist visa and how does that impact. So thanks a lot for covering that.
Yeah.
We have a complete opposite question next. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got visa rejected 5 times. Can I reapply?
You can. Let's first talk about the technical aspect of it. You can apply as many times as you like for a visa. There's absolutely no limit on the number of times you can apply. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a good idea to apply, I'm going to say 30 times, right? That's not necessarily a good idea for you financially and the time investment. And also, the more times that you've been refused, the more likely it is that you'll be refused in the future, right? So if someone's been refused once, a visa officer sees, oh, one refusal, but they also know that it's very common for people with one visa refusal to be issued a visa subsequent to that refusal. However, if they open up your case, and the first thing they'll see is refusals, they open up your case and they see a wall of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 visa refusals, they are more likely, you can just imagine, the psychology of that. They see that and they think, oh, 9 different colleagues of mine all refused them. And so the threshold you'll have to reach to prove to them that you should get the visa is going to be much higher, right? So it's not always useful to just keep throwing yourself against the wall of the visa officers with the same strategy, with the same application, with the same answers, just hoping you'll get a new decision. Then all you're doing is you're just adding up these refusals in your case history, so that when the next visa officer opens it, he's even more likely to refuse you. So if you're going to apply again, the key is not to just leave it to chance and say, okay, I'm going to go and see if they'll give me a different option. Obviously, and I'll freely admit this, there is an element of chance in this, because visa officers, some are more bold, some are more timid, some are more conservative, and some are more liberal, right? So some of them are going to be more willing to issue a visa to someone that's been refused, and some are going to be less willing to, right? But in addition to that, you need to be prepared to convince even that bold officer, right? Because the first one may have had some reason why they refused you. You need to have a new plan of attack, a new way that you're going to tell your story and get your information across. So if you're going to apply again, yes, you can apply again. In fact, I've helped many students who have had 5, 6, even 8 visa interviews go badly and get refused. I've been able to help them get their visa issued. But you do need a new plan. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. We have the next question. How much age factor impacts on the visa decision? For example, if someone having age between 35 to 40 years with 14 years of experience here in India.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's what we call a non-traditional student. So a traditional student is one that's on the unbroken timeline of their academic career, from high school to college to undergrad, from undergrad to master's, from master's to PhD. Maybe a year between undergrad and master's, or a year or 2 between master's and PhD would be viewed normally. However, anything where there's a 10-year, what you said, a 13-year gap, is going to be viewed as a non-traditional student, which means that you need to answer the questions about why now. Why now are you going back to school? What's this going to do for you? You're already working. You already have been on some path in life. Is this a complete change in your plans? Are you doing a career change where you need a new degree? Or is this going to help you further your career in the same field? Whatever it is, you need to be able to explain it very clearly, because when you're a non-traditional student, it's a question. Why? Right? The more questions the visa officer has, the harder it's going to be to issue. So you need to answer these questions for them as soon as you can in your visa interview. Lower the number of questions and doubts that they have.
Right. So Benjamin, how much time do we have now? Based on that, I will just shortlist a few more questions, because I have plenty of more. I think 20 more questions.
Yeah, let's go. I'll try to answer them very quickly for us.
Sure. So let me just take them one by one. What about if someone is having a relative in US already? Should they mention about that in the visa interview? And how does that impact? Many questions around that.
Well, on the DS-160, you need to put if you have a direct relative, parents, siblings, or children in the U.S. If it's a cousin, you don't have to write that on the DS-160. In the interview, if they ask you if you have family, you should say yes if you do have a cousin. But in the U.S., they make a big difference between a close relative and a faraway relative. I don't know specifically in India what it's like, but in some countries where I've served, people will call someone a cousin, even if they're not even directly related, just kind of like a close family friend or someone who's, fifth, sixth cousins away. There's no reason to call that person family. That's just an acquaintance that if they're removed from you that far. But if it's a direct cousin, like your father's nephew, something like that, then yeah, you would want to say yes. You also need to know about their situation. If you're going to say yes, you have a family member, you need to know about their situation and what they're doing, because if you say you don't know, you've left them with a question, right? You always need to think, I need to leave them with no questions, right? No doubts, no suspicions. Now, it is possible if you want to say, well, yes, I've got a cousin in the US who's my mom's sister's kid, but honestly, I've never met them and I don't know what they're doing. So you don't know what they're doing, but you've answered the question of why you don't know, right? I've never met this person. I don't know anything about their life, but I do know that they're in the US, right? So whatever you say there, you do need to resolve any doubts they've got.
Okay. So the next question is, how much funds do we need to show during visa interview? I think that is equivalent to I-20. But if the loan plus savings amount are covering expenses, but parents' income is low, like the parents are not earning a lot, does it impact in any way the visa interview?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yes, everything will affect it. Everything will affect the visa interview. And I'll just reiterate, it's not about the technical amount. It's not about, okay, does this amount cover 30% of this? What's the income? It's not about the technical details. It's about the feeling that the officer gets about your general situation, right? And this is where I'm going to stress again that it's the entire situation. So, in this person's case, if I were consulting them, I would want to find out about their academic career, because if the finances are not necessarily very strong, but their academic commitment has been very strong, then we're going to stress the academic commitment, right? If the finances are stronger, right, and there's multiple family members who have done the same thing, we're going to stress that. It's basically finding what's going to support your application and stressing that, rather than worrying about specific amounts of money that you need to show in a bank account.
Got it. Next question is, and this is something I think is specific to the current times and the last 1 year. If the student is already studying course online in the previous semester, that the hybrid model where you could have done one semester while you were in India, and if they go for the visa interview, does that increases the chance of visa approvals or visa acceptance?
Yes, it does. Now, I'll tell you why I would, as a visa officer, think that it does. If that student has been spending their full time studying online courses and they've paid the full tuition to that school, that's a commitment, right? That shows the willingness to pay, the ability to pay, and also the willingness to commit that time to those online studies. Now, the visa officers are not necessarily, they're not masters of deduction. They want to be, right? So let's help them be that, right? So bring that out. If that's what you've been doing, don't just say, oh, I've been studying online. You would want to say, oh, I've been enrolled full-time online, taking a full course of online courses through the hybrid model and paying full tuition at the university. All of a sudden, oh, all those light bulbs are going off in their brain, showing them, oh, the time commitment, the money commitment, and you're letting them know. If you just say, I'm studying online, they don't know. They might think that you're studying on Coursera or some free online studying platform. You got to let them know the specifics. Make it very easy for them to understand, oh, this person should get a visa.
Got it. Many students are being asked, why US, why this particular university? What should they keep in mind while answering? I'm part of many WhatsApp groups, and I keep seeing the discussions. People, recite the answers and go there and just tell them, or they just ask the visa consultant what should be told. and just told them there.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
This is one of those questions where the visa officers ask it, and there's no good answer, and there's no bad answer other than the answer that's not real, right? The worst answer that we get from students is when they say, I'm going to University of Central Arkansas because it's a very famous university and they have a campus of 238 acres and they have a state-of-the-art facility for swimming and horse research. These types of answers are not convincing because they don't sound real. They sound researched. They sound memorized. When they ask that, they're asking the question as they're asking when they ask any question. They're asking, why should I give you the visa, right? And so it's an opportunity to just talk about your real decision-making process as a student. Most people don't apply to universities in a supremely logical way where they're just they've researched every single university and they've decided that this one is there's an infinite number of universities to apply to, and so you pick some because of what reasons? Did you come across them at a career fair, at a student fair? Are they recruiting students specifically near where you live in India? And then did this university give you a scholarship, right? Did they give you tuition reduction? Is the tuition lower? All of these things are the things that American students would be talking about too when they're talking about why they choose the university that they applied to. For instance, if you asked me why I chose my university, I would say, well, I applied to quite a few universities. I even got into a better university than the one that I chose to attend because the better university gave me no financial aid, but this other university gave me a full scholarship and actually extra money on top of that. So I decided it was a better decision to be able to go to school with no student debt after I graduated than to go to the better university and then to get student debt applying to a master's degree afterwards if I want to, right? It's just a real answer. But if I said, oh, I chose this university because it's located in the heart of the city and has a beautiful campus and all of this stuff, that just doesn't sound convincing.
Right. And many questions around what should they say if they are asked what's their post-study plan. Should they mention specifically if they want to come back to India because really nobody wants to come back. They are going there to have a settled life there. In reality, obviously a few percentage of students would want to come back, but many don't. So what should they say?
They should not say that they don't plan to return to India. The plans, it looks too transparent if you just say, my plan is to return to India, right? Everyone knows that it's hard to get an H-1B. After you do your studies and your OPT, it's hard to get an H-1B. It's hard to convert status. But what the consular officers don't always take into account is that, let's say someone from India goes to the U.S. and gets their degree in electrical engineering, and then they want to, they do their OPT and they get experience working at a company in the U.S. and then they are unable to get the H-1B afterwards, right? Well, the options then are, okay, well, I'm going to stay in the U.S. but without work authorization, unauthorized, and not be able to work as an electrical engineer, or return to India and work as an electrical engineer. So the visa officers, for some reason, don't ever realize, okay, what am I comparing this against? It's being undocumented in the U.S. versus having a U.S. degree in engineering with experience working for a U.S. engineering firm while returning to India. And obviously, there are exceptions to anything, but in most cases, someone would want to be able to benefit from that status, that type of prestige, and the middle class lifestyle that you would be able to have doing that in India, rather than being undocumented and unable to work a real job in the U.S. Now, you just have to convince the visa officer of that. And the way is just, if people have a plan B, plan A is get the H-1B and eventually get a green card. If plan B is, well, if I can't get that, then I definitely need to come back to India, then tell them about plan B. You should not tell them that your plan is to apply for an H-1B and then and eventually a green card. Because technically, according to the law, if that is your plan, they're not supposed to give you the visa. So tell them about Plan B, because if you're intending to do that lawfully, then you can tell them about Plan B, and that should and have a real Plan B so that it's legit and it sounds real when you tell them what it is.
Right. I think probably the last question that we will take, given we have already exceeded the time that we have set aside for this particular session. So you mentioned that at the start about the loans, that if you're taking the loan, they might ask you that how would you repay the loans? So what should be the answer in that case? Because ideally, many people are counting on that after graduating, they will be getting jobs and with which they will be repaying it back.
Then I would talk about that. As long as there's a real plan, that's what they're asking about. They want to know that you've got a real plan. So you're taking out these loans, and then you can say, well, with these loans, then I'll have my OPT, I'll get this experience, and I can get this salary while I'm doing my OPT. And then there's job offers right now in India for this amount that I would be able to make and continue to be able to pay back these loans. Having a plan is what they want to see, right? They're not going to look at your plan and say, oh, actually, you're 25% short on being able to pay that loan back within 10. They want to see that there's a real plan, that you're earnest and sincere in your intentions.
Right. So I think that was my last question, though we have many in the chat box. So I would recommend everyone that if you are, so basically US visa is once in a lifetime chance. And as you mentioned, Ben, if it gets rejected, every time you go again, the chances of approval reduces significantly. So I wouldn't want to take a chance, and getting guidance from the expert, if available, and especially from people like you and companies like you, I would definitely say it's a good to go thing for the students, especially who are a bit in the peculiar situation, who are not in the very straightforward situation. They should go ahead and consult, because all the work that they have done of applying to the colleges, writing the SOPs, applying for the loan, arranging the finances, and it's a long journey. And if it's just getting rejected because of the visa interview, I think that's the price for the consultation is a very low bar for that. And if somebody is really concerned about their visa interview, I would say don't look anywhere else. There are no better place than Argo, and this is something I'm telling you, being part of this industry from last 5 years, interacted to like hundreds of visa counselors, visa experts who talk about the visa processes. Here you are able to get counseling or sort of guidance from the people who themselves have taken interviews. Like Ben, yourself have taken 60,000 plus interviews. That's a lot, and the kind of guidance that you can give that doesn't match or cannot match with anyone who is just being outside the office and just have heard things and based on that giving the expertise. So yeah, people who want to book a session with Ben and his team, we have the chat, and in the description we have mentioned the link with which you can book the session. If you book the session with the link mentioned in the video, you will get a surprise cashback from GyanDhan. Just let us know that you've booked it by emailing us, and do book with via that link only, so that we know that it has been booked. So with that, thanks a lot, Ben. Thanks a lot, the entire Argo team, and especially Mandy, to helping us organizing this. This was very helpful, and I can tell you that the video that is being streamed at YouTube, the last session we did with Mandy has, I think, more than 3,000 or 5,000 views now. So not only the students who are listening to this right now, many people will be resharing this video because they like and the content that you guys provide and talk about, and especially I'm the big fan. So thanks a lot for your time, and really looking forward to meet you again sometime in future.
Thank you, Aman, and good luck to all the students out there.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye. I'm ending the session with you.